The 2019 American Football Championship game is here, and we are counting down to kickoff in Memphis, Tennessee. We welcome you inside to Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium, where we are looking ahead to this American Football Championship game between number 17 Memphis and number 20 Cincinnati. I'm your host, Haley Outen, and I will be joined here momentarily by college football analyst Andy Gresh, who will be in studio and joining me tomorrow as we gear up for this championship game. We're going to look ahead to the game tonight, but we also hope you'll join us tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. Central for our pregame show. Like I mentioned, Andy will finally be here with us, but we have a whole lot coming up on tomorrow's show. We're going to talk in depth about Memphis and Cincinnati and the seasons that they've had and how they've punched their ticket to this title game. We're also going to talk to Memphis head coach Mike Norvell, Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, and we are going to dive deep into player analysis, and we're going to have some special guests on this show that have been covering these teams all season long. But before we get to any of that, I had a chance to catch up earlier this evening with Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, and you can catch his full interview on tomorrow's show. Coach, first time for your program playing in this American Championship game and playing in Week 15 of the college football season. What has been unique about this group that has led them to this moment to compete for a conference title?
Well, if you haven't watched us play all year, it's been quite a few really, really close games, and, we found a way to win. And, it was just, I don't know, they're resilient as all get out. And, if you'd asked us after a few of those games at which direction we were headed and how we were going to continue to grow, you weren't really sure. And, but these guys have continued to fight and battle. And, we've learned a lot throughout those processes. When you have that kind of adversity, especially in wins, you grow a lot from them, and we have.
You mentioned the resiliency of this group, and your team has pulled off comebacks of 6 points or more 4 times this season. What ultimately do you think allows this group to be so resilient?
Well, it starts with a poor start, maybe a little too slow, but I don't know. I hope and believe it's the way we train. It's the trust we have in one another. All those kinds of things that kind of add together. They don't get down, and sometimes they feel a little bit more comfortable in some of those situations. And, that's, unfortunately, we don't love to be in those situations, but you know what? Our guys don't panic. And I think we've learned a lot through those. These guys have been through a lot, and even our first season with 4 wins, and the year before that they only had 4 wins. It builds some character inside you, and you can continue to battle and have those kinds of seasons. Then when things start to roll your way, you really begin to believe.
You played on this field just a week ago. So after watching back the film, what has been the biggest point of emphasis this week in practice?
Well, it's the start. I mean, we can't put ourselves in another hole like that, like we've done a little bit too much this year. But it's a battle up front, and I think both our O-line and D-line guys have really, we've got to win the battle of the trenches. And in order to do that, we got to eliminate some of those negative yardage plays we had on offense. Defensively in the first half, I don't think we made the plays and got off of blocks like we needed to up front. It's going to be a battle of the trenches, and I think that's how they won the game last week. And we need to, in order for us to change the outcome of the game, it's really going to start up front. It will certainly be a battle tomorrow here inside the Liberty Bowl as Cincinnati takes on Memphis. Of course, the Bearcats looking to get off to a quicker start and finishing this one out for the American Championship title. We're now going to send it to Andy Gresh, who is in our studio, and he's going to enlighten us with what he feels has been the Power 6 top moments of the 2019 season.
Haley, thank you. It's now time to look at the moments this year in the American Athletic Conference. And for me, it started early in the season when Ole Miss went to Memphis. And I remember sitting here in the American Digital Studios and talking about the importance of how big it is for Memphis to beat another Power 6 opponent, and the way the outside college football world view as a Power 5 opponent. And it was the Bryce Huff safety that made it 15-10 and really cemented the victory for Memphis. We know they've gone on to have a great year. They've had a lot of players, from Brady White to Kenny Gainwell, who've made big impacts on their football team. We may end up looking back and saying the biggest play that Memphis had made on their football team this year was Bryce Huff in that safety against Ole Miss. Number 5 is when Houston played at Tulane and the game is close late, and then look out It's Jalen McCleskey, who breaks through a couple of tackles down the right sideline, scored what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown with 12 seconds left. We've talked about how Willie Fritz and Tulane have done a great job of building that program. McCleskey, a guy who gives great extra effort to be able to get the ball into the end zone. And we know Tulane is going bowling. Part of the reason why is because of that play there from Jalen McCleskey. Number 4, Cincinnati at ECU. Okay, fine. You want to get on me for throwing a field goal in here, but these are the Power 6 moments of the year, and it was a big moment when Sam Grossa hit a 32-yard field goal that gave Cincinnati a win against ECU. We've talked this year how Cincinnati has played great once again, but why? They did what they've done last year. They've won close and late. This is another example against Mike Houston's ECU squad that's getting better week to week. Cincinnati able to get a game-winning field goal that ensured their place at the end of the season here in the American Athletic Conference. We're halfway home through these Power 6 moments, and number 3, we go out of the conference a little bit here, where Maryland played at Temple and a big 4th down stop by Temple's Sean Bradley, a massive play in that game. Temple had multiple goal line and 4th down stops, gave them the victory against then nationally ranked Maryland out of the ACC. Another great Power 5 win for the American Athletic Conference. Temple's defense, that was the day that Temple's defense really got on the radar, I think, for a lot of people. Number 2, Tulane at Memphis, and this is an achievement kind of deal, I understand, but it's Brady White to Kenny Gainwell for this passing touchdown. And Kenny Gainwell is a guy who set a conference record, the first 100-200 player, 100 yards rushing, 200 yards receiving. This guy is, for my money, the best threat since Mackenzie Milton to be able to win maybe the Heisman Trophy coming out of the American Athletic Conference. And then finally, in terms of a Power 6 moment, in a big spot where SMU was playing at Memphis, Antonio Gibson had 3 record-setting touchdowns in this game. And I say record-setting because it came in 3 different ways, receiving, rushing, and in the return game. Over 380 yards in terms of all-purpose yards, where he set an American Conference record. Great numbers, a fantastic day, but the reason this stood out to me was Antonio Gibson, a guy we know who doesn't have blow-you-away type numbers, but had his biggest game in what was at that point the biggest game of the year for the Memphis Tigers, hosting SMU. So a lot of different ways you can look at this, a lot of different ways you can chop it up in terms of the moments. I went for ones that were really impactful to the overall of the American Athletic Conference. And of course, we know the teams who've gotten here today, bunch of them on this list. These plays were a part of getting them here to the American Conference Championship game. Haley?
That Memphis SMU game, certainly one of the most memorable games we witnessed all season long, and it happened right here in the Liberty Bowl. But those were Andy's top 6 games and moments of the year, and I generally encourage all of you at home to disagree with Andy if you so choose, and you can always leave your thoughts in our comments section. The West was a wild division this year, but the East was certainly no easy task either, and Cincinnati is that team representing in this game. A big question, though, heading into the title game is who will get the start at quarterback for the Bearcats. A lot of media members asking head coach Luke Fickell that question today. The starter, of course, all season long has been quarterback Desmond Ridder, but we saw Ben Bryant make his debut just 7 days ago inside the Liberty Bowl. But no matter who the quarterback is, he's going to have some pretty good offensive weapons around him, one of those being the junior running back Michael Warren II. Michael Warren II, he has had 60 yards on 7 carries in the first quarter of this game against Memphis last week. He broke the 1,000-yard barrier, in fact, for the second straight season in that second quarter. 14 touchdowns this season, 35 in his career, which is second on the all-time list. He had 3 straight 100-yard games, 6 this season, and he was named to the second-team All-Conference for a reason. They call Michael Warren II the truck. He has a big body, and he finds his way into the end zone for this Cincinnati team. They'll certainly need him tomorrow. A bigger player is 6'3" senior tight end Josiah DeGuara. He's the team's most targeted receiver. He's had 7 touchdowns this season, and he's averaging almost 14 yards per carry. DeGuara was the lone tight end named to the first-team All-Conference in the American just on Wednesday. So this is the first trip ever to the American Championship game for Cincinnati, and I had a chance to chat earlier with Josiah this evening about the difference in the emotions in preparing for Memphis this week heading into the title game.
We're excited. I mean, we've set out a goal all season to get to this point. We haven't really had an opportunity the past few years to play in this game, obviously. So we're really excited. The preparation is kind of the same. Obviously, there's a little bit more of an intensity just knowing what's on the line, but we're excited to be here and ready to get after it.
Having just played on this field a week ago, what has been the balance in terms of flipping the page from that loss, but also staying on that page to learn from some of those mistakes?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we come in, the day after the game, and obviously we wanted a different result last week, but it's kind of a weird scenario getting to play the same team back to back. It doesn't happen too much in any sport, really. So to be able to have a rematch this weekend and be able to come back in Memphis and get another shot at them, we're ready for it.
The senior tight end Josiah DeGuara looking forward to that rematch against Memphis in the American Championship game, hoping to end his season on a high note, but I know he has his sights set on one more later in December. We're now going to send it back in the studio to Andy Gresh to get his Power 6 takeaways, and we've known Andy Gresh to have a few opinions all throughout the season.
Haley, thank you. One of the things that I love being a part of the American Athletic Conference Digital Network is, every once in a while they'll just sit me in the room like this, tease me with donuts or whatever, and say, go ahead. Whatever's on your mind, fire it out there, right? And there have been times where I've ripped on the rubes of college football who are either with the college football playoff or those people who are voting in the national polls for not giving the American Athletic Conference sort of the respect that they deserve. And that is among my takeaways here. I've got my Power 6 takeaways for the American Athletic Conference coming out of this season. And I'm going to work backwards because I did put these in matter of importance. Number 6, expect more grad transfers to make an impact in the American Athletic Conference in the next few years. The reason I say that is look at what Shane Buechele has done for SMU. He's come in and been arguably one of the top 5 passers in all of college football. We've seen grad transfers come into the American and be able to jump right in and play at a high level. Look at what Buechele has meant to SMU. You could argue that he has changed that football team in so many different ways. He's given them leadership. He's settled down the quarterback spot. And when you have a coach like Sonny Dykes, he's going to be able to attract these kinds of fifth-year quarterbacks. And I don't think that Sonny Dykes, it's not that he doesn't want to recruit the position. He's going to want to find his answer long-term. But the American Athletic Conference has become more and more attractive to some of these grad transfers because they know they're going to have the ability to come in and maybe lead a team to a bowl. And if you're a quarterback, let's say, you're thinking about, how can I get to the next level? Let me go to a team in the American that's pretty good that's going to be on the national radar. Number 5, UCF not being in the American Athletic Conference championship game is a good thing for the American Athletic Conference. Look, I think most of us in college football who really do pay attention, especially to this league, understand hand is stamped in terms of UCF. They had an amazing run of consecutive wins. We know what they've done against other Power 6 opponents in big-time bowl games, but it's good for the league that it's not all about UCF, because it was for a time all about Mackenzie Milton and all about what they're building in Orlando. And the fact that they've had a couple of losses this year under Josh Heupel, it doesn't cripple the program by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, you could argue that Dylan Gabriel may be the most improved player in college football from once he was really inserted into the starting lineup to where he's at today. But this league is so much more than UCF. And I get on all those people in college football who don't give the American the respect and the love that they deserve. maybe, just maybe, taking UCF out of this equation and forcing people across college football to actually look at how good the American Athletic Conference is going to be something good for the league. Here's number 4. The American doesn't need a 12th team because this league is plenty good. You know, if you go back and you think about to where the American Athletic Conference started some half decade ago, there are a lot of people who looked at the football end and said, well, they're going to have to go get this team or that team, or they're going to have to make this move or that move, or are they going to be able to build it to where the league is going to consistently be good enough? And look at what I just referenced about UCF not being in the American Athletic Conference championship game, and that is a good thing for the league. I think in terms of getting a 12th team, it's a little bit like what Mike Oresco has done on the basketball end. They were very particular in bringing in Wichita State on the basketball side of the American. Don't think that Mike Oresco is going to be willy-nilly just to add a 12th team to the conference. They've already got the NCAA waiver for the bowl game. The scheduling is handled for the next 2 years. Let's revisit this maybe in 2021. Number 3, Kenny Gainwell has the best chance that the American Athletic Conference has maybe ever had at a Heisman winner. This guy's spectacular. Now, I know that Mike Norvell is going to continue to use Kenny Gainwell in ways that will get him on the national radar. Here's my fear in terms of Kenny Gainwell being a Heisman candidate, is that there will be the people who don't give the American Athletic Conference the respect they deserve, who will say, well, yeah, he's put up big numbers, but look at the competition. Or, hey, he's put up big numbers, but how come those numbers aren't bigger? That's rubbish, poppycock, and hogwash. Kenny Gainwell is a great football player. He's playing in one of the best conferences in college football, top to bottom, and this is a guy who deserves the run and respect that a Heisman winner would get. That said, Kenny Gainwell's got to hold up his end of the bargain, and so does Memphis with Mike Norvell. Number 2, the No Division American Athletic Conference is going to be a ton of fun. Why? Because you're going to leave matchups on the proverbial cutting room floor. I chronicled some of them a little bit earlier here today. And there are going to be, certain teams that aren't going to play each other that we're used to seeing play each other in the East-West setup that we have right now in the American Athletic Conference. It recreates excitement for the league. It adds new buzz to the conference championship game. And what it really does is it helps put these teams on notice that you only get 8 conference games. You've only got 8. You have your schedule. You know how to prepare. You don't have to worry about division tiebreakers and things like that. Just go win. Doesn't matter who you play, just go win. You could argue that it is that way now, but now there's tiebreakers and it's who you beat, and that matters. And yes, head-to-head will matter, but I think in terms of the new format for 2020 and 2021, the American is going to gain buzz because there will still be good games left for the American Athletic Conference Championship game. And I mentioned that I put these in order of importance because, number 1, the AAC is still fighting for respect with the college football playoff. And then I wrote on my notes, sadly, this is still the case. I'm pretty tough on a lot of the voters in terms of the polls in college football. But those with the college football playoff, there are different people in the room who can look at it from a business end, who can look at it from a football end. And year after year, Mike Oresco will come on my radio show. He will go on national shows. He will hold press conferences to try to bang away at the College Football Playoff Committee to give the American the respect they deserve. At different times this year, Boise State did not deserve to be ranked over anyone in the American Athletic Conference in terms of those top 4 teams, SMU, Navy, Memphis, Cincinnati. The fact that they were, in my opinion, was because the college football playoff was kind of hedging their bets. Look at what they did when they rolled out the first week. They put Clemson outside the top 4. Why? Because they knew eventually there would be battles between teams in that top 10 that would allow Clemson to be able to move up in there. So you didn't have to reward a so-called Power 5 league that wasn't having a great year from top to bottom And then Clemson naturally made their way into those top 4, and the college football playoff kind of protected themselves. In my opinion, the fact that they had, the CFP, had Cincinnati and Memphis ranked so close to each other was because they knew there wouldn't be not just one, but 2 battles between these teams. And unfortunately, once these polls come out, I think the American gets penalized for their losses more than any other team or any other conference across college football. The college football playoff is supposed to be about ranking the best teams and getting them into an order so that we can have the best playoff. It's not, well, we're hedging our bets and we're going to put these 2 teams near each other. And at one point in time, we had Oregon and Utah near each other in the Pac-12 before they played head-to-head. It's supposed to be an objective ranking of these teams so that we can get the best Final Four playoff. And yes, the American does still have a long way to go to get into that Final Four college football playoff. But the less respect they get from the College Football Playoff Committee for years at a time, as the American has had over the past 3 seasons, it's only going to hurt the league brand in the long run. And at some point, is someone in that room going to jump up and say, no, this league has earned it. And if they've only got 1 loss, say like, Cincinnati to an Ohio State at one point in time, they deserve to be ranked higher. It'd be nice to see the CFP get with it relative to the American Athletic Conference. Haley, back to you.
Thank you, Gresh. Never a shortage of words. Just took my friend about 9 minutes to get through his Power 6 takeaways, but we love you for it. All right, let's get back on track and talk Memphis, the key players to watch. And the freshman that has taken this country by storm this season is the freshman running back, Kenny Gainwell. He ranks 11th nationally with over 1,300 yards on the ground this season, 5th nationally in all-purpose yards with over 1,800, and his name is in some pretty good company here at Memphis. He's 5th with the most in a single season at Memphis. He's set a ton of records so far in just a short amount of time, 7 100-yard rushing games as a freshman, and most importantly, he was named the American Conference's Rookie of the Year on Wednesday. Let's talk about the quarterback, Brady White. He has done a thankless job all season long. In fact, he has been the most efficient passer in the American, completing over 66% of his passes. He's thrown for a career-high 3,307 yards this season, 30 touchdowns. And get this, the only Tiger to do it before him was a recent familiar face who has also appeared in this championship game, and that is Riley Ferguson. I had a chance to catch up with Brady earlier this evening about what the preparations have been like getting ready for Cincinnati for the 2nd time in just 8 days.
It's been pretty much the same, honestly. Obviously, there's that element of the same team in the following week, so you do have to kind of prepare for some changes and some wrinkles, but at the end of the day, it's another week, and the same goal is to be 1-0, so we've been, preparing and grinding, and we're ready to go.
What will be the biggest challenge about winning this matchup twice in a row?
It's always tough to face the same team twice in a season, no matter what sport, what team, especially back-to-back. But like Coach Norvell said, and it's been kind of a mindset of our entire team, is we just focus on ourselves. We know the task at hand. We know the opponent at hand. We just got to control what we can control and go out and get the job done, whatever it takes. So that's our mindset.
You made your championship debut last year at UCF and left Orlando empty-handed. How much does that experience weigh on your mind as you head into this championship game?
Yeah, it was a great learning experience, an awesome atmosphere, and an awesome opportunity to play in that championship game. But that was last year, so you kind of learn what you can from it and take that experience to mind. But you move forward, and it's another year, it's a new team, a new opportunity, and we have it here at the Liberty Bowl, and we've been here before, so we're comfortable in this setting and excited to go out and play in front of our fans.
Memphis quarterback Brady White looking to use his experience in tomorrow's championship game and maybe earn some redemption from that loss just a year ago in Orlando. We're now going to send it back to Andy Gresh one final time and get his thoughts on who the Power 6 performers have been across the American this season.
All right, Haley, here it is, right? This is the big list here, our Power 6 performers this year in the American Athletic Conference. Now, may I just say this out of the chute? If I didn't include your guy, I don't hate him. I don't hate your team. I tried to pick performers who have been consistent all year long, guys who deserve to be on this list. And while I probably could have picked 35 or 40 players across the American Athletic Conference, I've narrowed it down to these 6 players. And I want to start with SMU quarterback Shane Buechele, who, when talking previously, he's one of these grad transfers who's come in and really taken advantage of opportunity. He's consistently been in the top 10, if not the top 5, in passing yards all year in FBS college football. He's been a great leader for SMU. That's going to be a fun bowl game wherever the Mustangs end up. Look, you can tell me I'm a suck-up for him because I mentioned Heisman Trophy possibilities with Kenny Gainwell, the running back from Memphis, but you can't convince me that this guy isn't one of the better players in college football. Top 3 in college football and FBS in all-purpose yards because he's a guy who's been able to do it all. We chronicled his 100-200 day. We've looked at how just he's made game-breaking plays all year long. Kenny Gainwell, one of my guys on this list. I mean, the freshman of the year in college football, in my opinion. Then there's SMU defensive back Patrick Nelson, and I know that on our American Digital Network coverage, we really don't delve too much into defense, but Patrick Nelson, defensive back from SMU, has had a fantastic year. Top 10 in the NCAA in sacks for a big chunk of the season. Had some big standout plays in big moments for SMU. One of those guys who's unheralded because we talked so much about James Prochet and Shane Buechele and all of the players on offense that Sonny Dykes has. He's got some good defensive players as well. Patrick Nelson, one of those guys. Halfway home on these Power 6 performers. By the way, these are also in no particular order, so that way I don't catch flack from you, keyboard warriors out there thinking that there's some sort of rankings going on. Quincy Roche is number 4 on this list. Top 10 in sacks. This is a guy who's been one of the leading tacklers in the American Athletic Conference and was the stalwart of a Temple defense that gave them the ability to win a bunch of games this year. Offensively, Temple had some issues, inconsistent quarterback play, turnover problems. Quincy Roche, part of a defense at Temple that was able to get them to where Rod Carey wanted to this year, which was back to a bowl game. Temple showing a lot like Memphis, that regardless of who the coach is, really good infrastructure there for them to have consistent winning seasons. Can't leave out Malcolm Perry of Navy, top 5 in college football in terms of rushing yards. It's amazing. There were times where Haley Alden and I sat here and talked about the quarterback situation in Navy, and when there's turnover, mainly when there's no Malcolm Perry in there, the situation gets dire for that Navy offense. You put Malcolm Perry in there, now you got something. We've seen the kind of year the Navy has had, and when you can possess it and run the ball, helps make your defense better. And last but not least, Gabriel Davis, wide receiver from UCF. Top 10 all year long, pretty much in terms of NCAA or receiving yards in NCAA and FBS football. Part of the reason Dylan Gabriel has been able to grow at the quarterback spot for UCF is because of guys like Gabriel Davis and the kind of consistency he put up game in and game out this year for the Knights. I hope Knights fans don't look at this season as some sort of disappointment. So there you go. We've gone through the new schedule. We've given you some plays. We've given you some stuff to think about and your Power 6 performers. And Haley, I can't wait to get there. We're coming in hot tomorrow for the American Conference Championship game. I can't wait. Save me a spot in first class, please.
Gresh, only you would expect to be seated in first class. But one of my favorite Greshisms, I think, so far this year has been the term keyboard warriors. So you guys have a few more minutes left to go to town here in the comments section and let Gresh and I know your thoughts. We're actually going to take a look at the beautiful city of Memphis, where the Tigers are looking forward to hosting the American Championship in less than 24 hours. The city of blues, soul, and rock and roll. Not only a great football championship game in store tomorrow, but there's some pretty fun stuff to do here as well. Live look at Beale Street. Well, for Memphis, this is their 3rd straight trip to the American Championship. The last 2 years, they have found themselves in Orlando, and they have flown back to this city empty-handed. But as Mike Norvell and the Memphis Tigers look to make it 3rd time's the charm, they're looking very much forward to playing right here at their home inside Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium. Coach, playing in this championship game the past 3 years has become a pretty familiar spot for your team. What will be the biggest difference, though, this time around when your team takes the field?
I think that each team is different, and the maturity that we've been able to showcase throughout this year as a team, and really the leaders that have emerged. I'm really proud of this team and some of the adversity we've had to overcome throughout our journey, and we're excited to be able to play this game at home, and I know it's a great thing not only for our team but for the city.
Playing a team twice in 1 year is rare, but playing a team twice in 8 days is almost unheard of. How has your coaching staff approached that challenge?
Well, it's been unique, and I've never been a part of that, but you try to stay true to who you are, and you not to overthink every situation. And just like I told the team, our focus this week has to be on ourselves. And we were excited about the victory last week, but there were a lot of mistakes that showed up that we have to get corrected to play to the level that we believe we're capable of. And we know that Cincinnati's going to be an absolute challenge.
To beat a top 25 team in back-to-back weeks is a tall task, but why is your group ready for that challenge?
I think the maturity that we talked about, our focus since back in January was every day just to continue to improve, control the things that we can control. We know that this is going to be a great opponent that we're playing, one that presents so many different issues for us. But if we can continue to get better, focus on each play, and then I think that maturity and the talent of our team will show up.
Mike Norvell and the Memphis Tigers looking to claim their first American championship game title and punch their ticket to that New Year's Six bowl game. You can join us tomorrow in advance of the championship game for our pregame show starting at 1 p.m. Central. You can tune in on either Facebook or Twitter. We have the beautiful sounds of Memphis going on in the background behind us, planes, trains, automobiles as people file in to this great city in preparation for tomorrow's championship. We're going to have a full lineup in store for you. We're going to hear again from both head coaches. We're going to hear from both players again. We're going to be joined by writers from around the country who have been covering these teams all season long. We'll also hear from Commissioner Mike Oreska, and we have some fun stuff in store for you too. We're going to have some Memphis food on the set. We're going to experience a little bit of Memphis culture. And last but certainly not least, we are going to put our segment, the American Mailbag, to a close in what better fashion than here at the title game, taking your questions from home one final time. We'll be joined here tomorrow with Andy Gresh here inside the Liberty Bowl. Again, we hope you'll join us starting at 1 p.m. Central as number 17 Memphis gears up to take on number 20 Cincinnati. Beautiful look at Memphis. We are looking forward to a great battle tomorrow, a rematch from just 8 days ago. The Memphis Tigers looking to make it third time's the charm, and Cincinnati looking to capitalize and claim their first American title as well. We'll see you back here on Facebook and Twitter again starting at 1 p.m. Central.